Welcome to the Market Mindset. We are the hub for news, results, and CEO interviews focusing the junior commodities sector. We provide market analysis and perspective that will help position you for solid returns. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can help support us by liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and clicking the notification bell. For more info, you can visit our website. All links are in the description below. Now let's get into today's video.
Good morning, everyone. It's Andrew with the Market Mindset. Today, we're talking about Canadian companies that qualify under the Defense Production Act. This is our pathway to the new future, to our electric future. We've talked about critical metals and critical minerals in the last few months, especially, and the acknowledgement by the Canadian government. But today, we wanted to focus in on the U.S. military and its comments and Biden's infrastructure bill and what kind of role that plays moving forward for us here and in the mining sector in Canada.
Yeah, and obviously with, as both Canada and the United States have made some moves that we've given them credit for over the past few weeks in kind of maintaining national security and incentivizing domestic production and trying to secure domestic production surrounding critical minerals. It's interesting to see, the United States military soliciting Canadian companies and saying, hey, we want to provide public funding through the Defense Production Act to the tune of potentially hundreds of millions of dollars to invest in critical minerals in North America, close to home with one of our closest allies. And I think that's a great move.
Absolutely. And we've seen some responses from the Canadian government over the last few weeks in regards to slowing down Chinese lithium projects or companies that they've invested in, Canadian companies, in order to try to corner them. They've been active. Chinese companies have been active buying up properties in South America. And there has to be a bit of a pushback and acknowledgement that we need to control our own destiny. And this is something we've talked about for a long time. But it's great to see that, although late, the U.S. seems to be full on board with this. And, we've seen articles in the past, and even the past year, that shows like the Department of Defense calling green technology minerals the 21st century oil weapon. So that's, your copper, lithium, rare earths, and, graphite, all these companies we've talked about, and we're starting to see now this acknowledgement at the level that we need to see. And I mean, what's great about this is Biden had invoked the 1950 Defense Production Act, and that took a lot of money to implement it. But it came from like a White House study that talked about all these minerals, batteries, semiconductors, all these major sectors that need to come back home, that the West needs to have a better control of. There's an article in the CBC called Canada's Critical Minerals Overview. And it was talking about nickel, copper, manganese, graphite, and rare earths. And it was saying that the known reserves aren't that high. And it was kind of taking a shot at it, giving a sobering reflection that, listen, the geological reports show that there's not a ton of known reserves. And the author wasn't wrong. But we have to keep in mind that there has been like an active, decentralization from the Trudeau government to do any type of mining, to do any type of resource development in this country. We're seeing this shift now, and it may have just been a wake-up call, or maybe just a last bit of effort of acknowledgement by the government to go, if we want this transition, we have to start mining. We have to start looking. Yeah. This is where the junior market comes in so critically, because that's the R&D side. We may not have the known reserves because we weren't active, but we need to be active. And what the hidden value is the amount of reserves people kind of acknowledge that are there, and they're in these critical metals. That's the key. And this article too, it was mentioning like lithium, that there isn't a lot of known reserves. This would have been done before the author would have had a chance to really, unless they are in the mining sector, to know about direct lithium extraction, to look at Alberta and the lithium brines there, where we're seeing some huge numbers coming out of the companies there. Whether you're looking at E3 Metals or you're looking at Lithium Bank, I mean, there's such a massive opportunity with lithium in Alberta, Saskatchewan. That alone is massive. And we've seen also the news last week we were talking about with the development of a hydrogen plant in Alberta as well. That's another key factor that's going to drive this economy forward. And what we need to keep on hammering whoever the government is to acknowledge that, to get that going. And, in this one article, it says, well, the Canadian budget put $10 million to start an office in regards to critical metals and also do $50 million in research. Well, that's kind of $60 million wasted, because they could have spent a couple $100,000. I would have done it for a couple $100,000 and told them exactly what was needed. That might be a little bit harsh, but I need to take a shot at that's a total waste of money. You don't need an office for $10 million. $10 million could have went into the ground for some other program and actually get something out. That's what we need. We need money to go in the ground to find economically viable projects in all these key areas, whether it's cobalt and nickel. It doesn't matter. That's where the money should be spent. And it should also be, if we're looking at democracies and open markets and all of these great things that the West kind of celebrates, it should be an opportunity and also maybe a tax benefit for individual investors to say, listen, we're going to be investing in projects that are putting money downstream. That's a lot of risk. Is there some way we could get a tax write-off or a benefit for the individual investor and get everyone as a country excited and on board with this?
Yeah, and I mean that would be a great, a opportunity if they could steer it in that direction. But even taking a step back from that, a move like this can build so much market confidence in the grand scheme of things. And that's a great point that the article kind of makes in saying that, if you're going to give grant money, that basically is you get the U.S. government, the Pentagon's blessing and saying, hey, this is a long-term project that we believe in, that we see is going to be viable. And it reassures investors that this is going to be a safe bet. I mean, if you want to follow projects that the U.S. government's been involved in financing, especially the U.S. military, some stocks that do pretty well in there. So if that same kind of method translates into mining, into critical metals, you can see that blessing to boost market confidence can have a huge kind of benefit.
Yes, for sure. And I'm glad you brought that up, because in that article from November 13th, Zolnowski said the U.S. is looking to offer grants, not loans. They're not looking to be an investor. They're not going to be a major investor in this project. They're not there to hold your hand. That literally, if you show them with confidence the path, they're willing to look. They're willing to help. And you can take that with a grain of salt. You could be cynical about it, but I think that they mean that. They're starting to realize this has gone on for too long. And one of the comments in one of the other articles, which was very telling, and I think his name is Mark Turpin, he said, I'm not so worried about this, because one of the imbalances in power is, yes, they have all the critical metals, but the West has quite a bit on the farm side, the fertilizer and food kind of side, which China absolutely desperately wants. That also has shifted a little bit now with Russia, Ukraine, and that whole development, because that fertilizer is now going that direction. So you can see this balance of power is shifting even more so. And that, although, uncomfortable in a grand scheme of things, as far as Canada goes, once again, a huge opportunity for us to decide which side do we want to be on the table on this? Where do we want our future to be? And I think with the West, it always should be, towards freedom and democracy and all of these ideas that we hold to be true. And this is a huge opportunity. It is what we've been talking about for years, where this could be the start. And maybe we were a bit too early. This could be the start of this whole new transition and the drive into the mining sector that we've been waiting for.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I'll just wrap this up with a couple of numbers on this that I think really sum up how large this opportunity is. If you take 2020 levels of basically the required mineral demand, and you apply that to 2040 based on projected government policies just in Canada, the demand for lithium is going to need to increase by about 55%. The demand for cobalt is going to need to increase by about 25%. The demand for nickel is going to go up almost 35%. The demand for copper is going to go up about 15%. And for rare earth metals, it's going to go up another 10 to 15%. So that's a massive, massive void that needs to be filled and stepped into. And that's a massive opportunity for Canada to help meet that goal.
Yeah, and that doesn't take into account the geopolitical issues we have now. I mean, we've talked about on other shows with nickel coming out of Russia, with the ag tech coming out of Ukraine and Russia. So those numbers have to come from ESG. And I know there's lots of back and forth on this term, but it really does have to come from Western countries. That's part of the US deal. and they consider, Canada in the Defense Production Act, we're a partner, that shuts off a lot of countries immediately because we do it fairly, we do it equitably, we do it with environmental consciousness in mind. We've done it already for decades like that. So we're already ahead of the curve on so many of those policies that the U.S. wants to see anyway. And this is a chance for Canadian companies and for Canada as a whole to become a world leader, a world-class leader, and to shift towards this new future in energy.
Yeah, it absolutely does. There's such a massive opportunity there, and this is the reason that we talk about it so much, and we kind of harp away on it. We're almost like we're that nagging girlfriend with the Canadian government, like, hey, you should really be doing this. But hey, you should really be doing this. We need to put ourselves forward to step in and help meet these goals, because there's nobody better suited to do it than we are. And that's a little bit of a humble brag, but it's true.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much, guys. We wanted to get this out to you because, once again, it's a big step. It's not a small thing. Now, is there still time? Yes. Right now, there's still time to be looking at companies that are going to provide these, these metals. But that's what we're here for too. We look at these companies and we get to talk to all these presidents and CEOs, and they're doing that with all this in mind. And we don't even know some of the companies that we're talking to. They could already be in talks with government officials. The Canadian government went forth and put out 70 names that they had in mind already to the Department of Defense. So things are moving, and it may not seem like it, but this is clear. Once it hits retail news that this is needed, required, and that there's an active move, then we're going to start to see some positive moves in the market. And we're looking forward to that. So everyone, it's a tough time, but there's brighter days ahead.
There absolutely is. Take care, guys. Always a pleasure, Andrew. We'll chat to you soon.